2018 has been a year of mystery so far. A lot of rumors floating out there. We don't know what's happening just yet. But one thing is, on my to-do list, I think 2018 is going to bring a year where ships becomes a more relevant part of the game. And in this video today, I'm going to go ahead and rank all the ships for you, as well as give you a farming guide on what ships you should focus on in each individual store. Now, ships has been around for over a year now, and not much has really happened with ships besides the fact they added crystals to fleet arena, which made an incentive for people to engage in it, and the small addition of ships in territory wars and territory battles. That is not too significant, but I feel like this year the developers will put some more effort into making ships a more relevant part of the game, and I figured this might be a time to give you a farming guide on what ships are good, because you might want to start thinking about adding ships to your collection if you haven't done so already. All the ships that I have farmed my personal account, I have not spent a single dime on the ships. Pretty much every single ship is now accessible free to play, so you have a lot of options, more than ever before, and hopefully going forward we have even more options. And I want to kind of give you guys an indication on what ships might be good going forward to have a lot of flexibility to being very useful in the game. So without further ado, let's go ahead, pull up that Hall of Fame and show you my idea of the rankings for all these ships. Gonna go over every single ship on this list. This would be a several hour long video, but this is my personal opinion on the best ships in the game to kind of more of the worst ones. But I have to say, there's really not a horrible ship in the game right now. Unlike characters, there's a lot of horrible characters. A lot of these ships do have some usefulness, but aside from that, a lot of these ships can be used for various different types of lineups. But obviously, as you guys know, Grandmaster ships are the ships that are the most flexible ships out there, work in any different type of lineup, and ships like that are the Imperial TIE Fighter Pilot, Biggs Darklighter, Darth Vader, and many others, as you see here. So let's move on now and go to the individual shipments. I have all these ships color coordinated, so when we go into a various shipment and you see the color, you can say, oh, the TIE Fighter Pilot's a Grandmaster, it's in Galactic Wars, so I probably should make that a higher priority. So just want to make sure as we're going along, you keep in mind the rankings for each individual shipment, because the rankings plays a big part on what characters or ships I'm recommending for each individual location. And if you're not looking for a ship guide, but rather a character farming guide, click on the card in the top right. I did a farming guide just at the end of 2017 to the beginning of 2018, so it's very relevant. Click on that if you're looking for a character farming guide. But without further ado, let's move into the Galactic Wars shipments. So Galactic War shipments, I'm going to pretty much recommend farming every single one of these ships because of the fact Galactic War currency is the easiest to come across in the game, in my opinion, and it's not highly valuable. Unlike, for example, Biggs Darklighter, you can farm him as well in the fleet arena store, the fleet shipments, and the problem is the fleet currency is super valuable. You got great characters like Darth Vader, Chirrut, and you also have Zeta Mats in there, and you have the Scimitar, and you don't really want to waste your hard-earned currency on, let's say, Biggs Darklighter, when you can easily farm him in Galactic War. So I recommend farming every single ship at one point in Galactic War, but obviously I'm going to prioritize what ships you should farm. Like, for example, First Order TIE Pilot, absolutely amazing. Towards the end game, I have him at Gear 11. He can do over 100,000 damage under the right situation. Then obviously Biggs Darklighter, one of the best all-around ships in the game. He taunts. He's pretty much in every single type of fleet lineup right now, so obviously one of the best ships right there. And then the Imperial TIE Fighter is a lot of the times the win condition for you or the other team. Whoever's TIE Fighter Pilot evades the most generally can win the game because they fuel so much turn meter to the fleet commander. So pretty much every single one of these ships farm at one point or another. It takes a while to farm all of them. I've been doing it slowly the free-to-play way, but there's a prioritization to make sure you farm the good ones first. Now moving on over to the Cantina, you don't really find that many ships in the Cantina. You really only have the TIE Silencer and Plo Koon's Jedi Starfighter. And pretty much if you're farming a ship out of the Cantina, I only recommend the TIE Silencer on Battle 3F because of the fact, one, you can't farm the TIE Silencer in any other aspect of the game, and secondly, you also get Kylo Ren unmasked shards with this. So that's a 2-for-1 special right there. And to be honest, that's probably the best free-to-play thing that we've ever got in the game, to get two different things, a ship and a character, on the same note at a very accessible location. Plo Koon's Jedi Starfighter, I recommend getting him on the Galactic Wars shipments. He's very easily accessible there, and again, your Cantina energy is very valuable, so you don't want to waste time farming Plo Koon's Jedi Starfighter when you can easily get him on the Galactic Wars shipments. And in Cantina shipments, all that hard-earned currency you're getting from the Cantina when you're farming the TIE Silencer, for example, you get all this currency, and you might be wondering, well, what ships are in the Cantina shipments? And luckily, there's only one ship in there, and that's Cassian's U-Wings, or Cassian, I don't know. Every time I say the name, you guys always criticize me either way, so make up your minds, people. But anyways, Cassian's ship is really important because of the fact he's a very accessible rebel ship that is needed for the Chimera event. In the guild shop, we just started getting ships in there for the first time, and we only have the First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter. Now, this kind of pairs along with my character farming guide I made not too long ago, but there's a lot of good stuff in the guild shop, so farming this ship might not be high on your priority list, and I don't recommend farming the First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter unless, of course, there's some sort of First Order event that requires First Order ships. That's when I say go ahead and farm that really quick, but right now, you don't really have to farm this ship out of the guild shop until you farmed all of your necessary characters that I pointed out in my character farming guide from about a couple weeks ago. And now we got fleet shipments, one of the most obvious locations to farm ships as the word kind of describes here. And here is where you gotta be careful on what you're farming, because a lot of these ships here you can farm in other aspects in the game that are a lot more easier to farm than getting them out the fleet shipments. For example, I'm just gonna go down the list on what you probably shouldn't spend your fleet currency on, because you can farm them, for example, in the Galactic War, Ahsoka Tano's Jedi Starfighter, Biggs Dark Glider's X-Wing, Clone Sergeant's ARC 170, First Order TIE Pilot, and then the list goes on and on. Geonosian Spy Starfighter, Geonosian Soldier, Imperial TIE Fighter, all these ships you can farm in other aspects of the game, so be careful not to waste your hard-earned fleet currency on that stuff, because there's a lot easier ways to go about and farm those characters. But there are a few ships that you really should farm in here because they're exclusive to this location and they're absolutely amazing. Now, with the fleet shipments, there's only 2 ships that you can exclusively farm here and you can't find anywhere else unless you fork out the big bucks, and that's the Slave one and the TIE Advanced one. You can't find them anywhere else, and they're 2 of the best ships in the game. Boba Fett's a high damage dealing ship right there. He also has an ability that hits every single target locked ship on the other side of the field, and he has an AoE ability that goes right under the protection of the other ship, so very powerful damage dealer. And the TIE Advanced is one of the best ships in the game, and you find him in almost every single type of ship lineup out there because his basic is unavoidable, it applies target lock, and it's great for taking out Imperial TIE Fighter pilots because it stops them from constantly evading. My strategy when using the TIE Advance is using him solely to hit the TIE Fighter, and no one else gets to touch the TIE Fighter pilot until Darth Vader takes him out. But there's a lot more ships aside from the TIE Advance and the Slave one. The fleet shipments in the guild event shop, they actually kind of have a huge overlap in terms of what ships they have to offer. So I'm going to go ahead and bridge these 2 shipments together, and I'm going to leave the decision up to you whether you farm in fleet shipments or guild event shop, because for some of you, the guild event shop currency is a lot more valuable than the fleet shipments. But generally, I'm going to kind of weed out the ships you shouldn't farm in there. Like, for example, don't farm Ahsoka Tano's ship at either of these locations. So the ships you're seeing right now are the only ships I would recommend farming out of either of these locations because you can't really find them anywhere else in the game. But for example, some ships to consider are the Ghost and Phantom. Those 2 should be pretty high on your list, especially if you want to get the Chimera. Those are pretty much mandatory to get, and the Chimera is the best fleet commander right now, so that's something to consider. You also have, for example, the Gauntlet. You can't really find it anywhere else besides the guild event store, as well as the fleet shipment, so that's another important ship. Biston's U-Wing, Poe Dameron, and Rex's ship are also some ships in both of these locations you can't find anywhere else and are fairly decent. And now finally, we have the hard node battles. Now, these are ships you're going to be farming over the long haul, and there are some ships exclusively on hard node battles. For example, Kylo Ren's command shuttle, only on a hard battle. You have the TIE Reaper, only on a hard battle. And then you have the Millennium Falcon Episode 7 version, only on a hard battle. And as you see in my personal inventory, these 3 are my favorited ships because I have to go ahead every day and farm those 3 ships out of those various locations. Man! That was a lot of information we threw at you in the past few minutes. We went over all of the shipments, what ships you can find there. We weeded out the ships you shouldn't farm in these various locations, and we showed what the best ships are to the very worst ships. So a lot of information right there. But the last thing I want to talk about are the various fleet commanders, because fleet commanders are the heart of your fleet team, essentially. So we're going to talk briefly about what are the best ones and what are the worst ones, and I imagine going on throughout the year, it'll get even better. Pretty much, Grand Admiral Thrawn's Chimera is the best one in the game. That's pretty much the general consensus when you check most most arenas, Grand Admiral Thrawn is in every single fleet commander slot for people who do have access to him. He has a lot of abilities to control the field to your favor. He has an ability that instantly defeats enemies, that can regain health and protection for your own allies. He's got a lot of great stuff, but close up to Grand Admiral Thrawn is Grand Moff Tarkin, and the good thing is he's a free-to-play character and easily accessible. And when you start ships around level 60, you get the Executrix from Grand Moff Tarkin for free, alongside the Endurance from Mace Windu and Home One from Admiral Akbar. Now, Grand Moff Tarkin's Executrix kind of comes close to the next best ship, or fleet commander I should say, in the game. His ability, the TIE Fighter Assault, to instantly wipe out the other team, that comes in super handy. And if you have that TIE Fighter pilot, making the TIE Fighter pilot constantly evade can get Grand Moff Tarkin closer to TIE Fighter Assault, and he can beat plenty of Grand Admiral Thrawn teams out there. So Grand Moff Tarkin's Executrix is an excellent option to use until you finally get Grand Admiral Thrawn's Chimera. So in my opinion, he's the second best ship in the game, and the good thing is he's a free-to-play character and you get his ship for free when you unlock ships for the very first time. But then we have the Endurance and the Home One, and these are kind of starting to fall short compared to Grand Moff Tarkin and Grand Admiral Thrawn. The Home One, but in my opinion, is going to be your third best fleet commander, and especially if you run Rebels, an amazing fleet commander. But still, Grand Moff Tarkin, and especially Grand Admiral Thrawn, a lot of them can auto Home One teams because of the fact it doesn't offer as much as those other ships. Now, the Endurance isn't a horrible fleet, but it's just not as good as the other one, guys. It doesn't offer nearly as much as the other ones, and it's only really okay to use if you have a really heavy Republic-based team. But even besides, if you don't have Grand Admiral Thrawn, I highly recommend using either Admiral Akbar or, more importantly, probably use Grand Moff Tarkin over the Endurance, because right now Mace Windu's Endurance is kind of the worst among them. But again, it's not horrible, but it could be a lot better. But that is pretty much the whole video. There is one important aspect that I haven't really talked about, which is how to get Zeta Mats and what you should use to get Zeta Mats. And I have a whole video dedicated to that. It's one of my most popular videos out there. So click on the card in the top right hand corner, and that'll take you to my video about what to Zeta and how to farm Zeta. So check that out. But overall, I just want to make sure you guys have a good idea on what ships are good, because I feel like 2018 is going to be the year when ships becomes a lot more important in the game. But you guys let me know down below, was there some other ship that should have been moved higher or lower? Love to hear your input. This is more of a community feedback table in my personal opinion. Obviously, it's not gospel. But thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, you know what to do. Go ahead, leave me a like, comment down below, and subscribe so you're not missing a thing. And as always,